Hello! I just finished my first game of Victoria 3, my first game of the Victoria franchise. And I just wanted to give my thoughts and takeaways as a noob on what I can continue to grow from and what other noobs may take away from their first game as they're looking to start playing Victoria 3. As you can see, I played Venezuela. Venezuela only starts with 3 territories, and I actually played this game tall, so I just focused on economy. I did not expand at all. So I ended the game with 3 territories. You can see I ended up around 55-ish million GDP. I was a great power. I stayed Catholic. I became a republic. I became a republic pretty quickly. That always feels like a solid idea. If you look at some of these timelines, you can see that my standard of living was pretty steadily growing. I had some couple of downturns when we had a couple revolutions here. We had a trade pact break where I had a bunch of trade, but overall, I mean, we pretty much crushed it. And I gained prestige late using my navy specifically to give me a bunch of prestige, and I had a lot of prestige from production by the end of the game. Population-wise, pretty steady growth. I had a couple migrations early on. That's how I have Afro-Caribbeano in there, and some Mexican movement as well. But overall, I mean, I think the biggest way that I was successful was really pushing industry in my capital. I was big on steel. By the end of the game, I was #1 in oil and electricity and cars and steamships. Some very big advantages of Venezuela is their oil in their western state. What else? I guess now we'll just talk about lessons learned. I think the biggest lessons I learned was, one, is that if you sign lots of trade, import and export agreements, you have to be very careful about when you delete them, because that actually cuts off people at your trading center. So you can have very large amounts of unemployed very quickly, and that's how you get radicals. That's how I had both of my revolutions later on, is that I cut off a bunch of trade contracts. Some of the larger European countries. Britain had a major issue. France split into Occitane and France. They had a major issue where they weren't doing the supply routes, and I canceled the supply routes, and like 70,000 people became unemployed at once. So I went from like, hey, there's no radicals, to, oh crap, we're about to have a revolution. So it's very important to be cognizant of that. I didn't really notice that until later on. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what's happening, right? I would say the other thing is your construction sector. Be aware that when it's running, you're going to use a lot of wood, and if you do iron and steel production, you're going to have a lot of iron and steel. So you could go, if you're not prepared economically, you can have these crazy dips where your economy is doing great because steel and iron is being used the way you expect it to while you're constructing things, and then if you stop constructing for a little bit of time because maybe you need to save money or something's happening, then you're going to see your standard of living drop precipitously, because these steel and iron mills and these tooling factories and some of these car factories will now be unprofitable. And so a lot of people who are making you lots of money aren't making money anymore. So just be aware of that. I'd say that was kind of the biggest reason for some of my GP drops mid to late game. I'd say the other thing is, if you can get the literacy laws pass literacy laws quickly. Once I got my literacy up, I was able to train whoever the heck I wanted, whenever I wanted, which is great. Because there's a while there where I couldn't make like machinists. I was just stuck on laborers because I hadn't upgraded my my literacy, and I was like 40% literacy, but I was one of the richest countries in the world. It doesn't really work. And then just be aware of like discrimination and other laws. I would always take laws if you have a chance to. Be aware that if you're going to trade a lot, you're going to need a lot of land that has ports, because once you cap out your convoys, you're kind of stuck. Luckily, I was able to aggressively upgrade my ports, and I used most of my production domestically. So I was able to be pretty tall and not be affected by it. But I think next time, the next couple games, I will definitely be more aggressive on getting treaty ports and being more maritime focused, because that kind of roadblocked me for a little bit of time where I couldn't increase. And yeah, I think the other thing I would focus on is just picking resources that you're going to choose to strategically import. I mean, think about Venezuela, for instance. I chose to strategically import paper and wood, and I just use those as my base inputs for my iron, my steel, and my cars. And I went tech. I imported the basic resources. But you don't have to do that. If you want to keep the balance of power in landowners, you want to stay a monarchy, maybe you want to focus more on wood or these base resources where your wealthy landowners are the population that stays in power because of it. Because if you go very industrialization focused, these people are going to push for reforms that your current government may not like. So do it with an idea and understanding what kind of government you're going to use. And it's going to help you a lot. And then understand cultures, and if you're going to be, more conquer focused, more military focused, what sort of culture acceptance do you have? Are you super racist? How's that going to impact you? Because the governments in the game can be pretty. You get some pretty rough events that really hurt your authority and your ability to stay legitimate if you're discriminatory. But overall, I mean, fun game. I mean, I finished with 23-ish standard of living. I was right up at number 1. GDP, I was up in like the top 15 with a population of like 4.5 million. So I was like the 50th highest population-ish. But I was in the top 10 in GDP and top 1 or 2 in standard of living and top 10 prestige. Pretty good. So overall, good first game. I think I'm going to play a larger country this time. We'll see what a bigger, more fleshed out country. I may play America and see if I can get some achievements. But yeah, I'm on twitch.tv/shaded1. Come check me out. I'll play some more of these soon. Have a good day.